Hi there, and welcome to the Shopfront Improvement Grant Scheme webinar. On behalf of our Colchester bid, I am Sam Good, the bid manager. And today we've got an incredible lineup for some support mechanisms for if you're considering an application for a grant scheme, or even just considering any kind of improvements to your shop fronts coming up in the near future. So a bit of background on the Shopfront Improvement Grants themselves. They are the first of its kind for Colchester, and the main objective is to support you as businesses to both improve with physical infrastructure changes, but also support education. So be that through planning, through that local suppliers, access to local knowledge and expertise from local architects who we've got later on with Hana Loftus. And hopefully this webinar will help guide you in the right direction, be that towards help and guidance, or for you to identify exactly what you're going to do with your shop funds. So as I mentioned, we've got some really great lineup today with Simon Cairns from the Planning Department for Colchester City Council, who's going to be talking around the conservation area itself and the shopfront design guidance. We've also got Hana Loftus, founder of Hat Projects, which is a city centre business in itself, and she's going to talk through how to maximise your opportunities when updating your shopfront. And we also have Trish Willets, Relationship Manager of British Bids, who's going to talk about case studies and key learnings from the Shopfront Improvement Grant Scheme in Coventry bid and her experiences with that as well. So no further, I will summarise at the end with some additional points as well, but I'm very pleased to hand over to Trish Willets, Relationship Manager at British Bids.
Hi everyone, Trish Willets from British Bids, the Relationships Manager, and I used to be the Bid Director at Coventry Bid, and delighted to be part of this process and to see the wonderful opportunity that this is bringing to Colchester. So I was part of the Heritage Action Zone in Coventry, working with the local authority, Historic Coventry Trust, and Historic England. And we ran a programme on 2 specific roads and was a national demonstrator for changing the way that shop fronts look and changing the feel of an area because of that piece of work. Absolutely brilliant piece, and was delighted to play a major part in that. What it's actually done for Coventry is remove the broken window syndrome on those 2 roads that were previously not desirable places to go. The businesses were okay and doing okay, but they weren't drawing the more discerning customer. One of the projects, and I'm sure Sam will share the images, was a telephone shop, a mobile phone shop that had lots of posters, really nasty backlit signage to the business. And because we've done the roads and changed the full scheme on those roads, the street scene, turned it from being quite a gnarly and, oh, it's just go and get your phone sorted, into a bespoke phone business with traditional tiling on the bottom half of the shop. It looks really beautiful in the Victorian sage green, almost the farrow and ball colours, with hand-scripted signage, and is going from strength to strength. Another one of the brilliant businesses had the step walking into the business being an inward step. So as you had to step up into the business in order to open the front door and go in, and it was a barber shop. Because of the way of that indentation at the front of the shop, they were only able to get 2 chairs in and therefore service 2 customers at a time. By changing the front of the shop has meant a flat surface, and that business was able to actually add another chair and therefore increase their business by 1/3, employ a new member of staff. So the economic impact of just changing that shop front has been massive for the business. So there's just a couple of case study examples, and delighted to be part of the panel now, here to support and help and really open to conversations. So don't hesitate to make an application. If it doesn't work out this time, who knows? One of the stakeholders, as I mentioned, that we worked with was Historic England, and British Bids, they're one of our supplier portal members, and we're looking at doing many more projects with them right across the UK. So let's get Colchester and this incredible initiative that Sam and the team are showcasing and leading on. Let's see whether we can bring Historic England along to add more money into the pot. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Trish. That was fantastic. Really, really great insight into the Coventry Bids Shopfront Improvement Grant Scheme in line with Heritage England and the Heritage Action Zone. So thank you so much for that. That leads me on to introducing our next panel member. It's Hana Loftus, co-director of HAT Projects, which we're blessed to have in Colchester City Centre ourselves. And she's going to introduce and support in introducing a bit more information in how businesses can maximise the use of their shop fronts in the city centre. Hannah.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks for having me. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about design perspectives that you could use when looking at your shop front. There's so much to a shop front that sometimes it can be a little bit hard to think, well, where do I start? What's the most important consideration here? And I suppose I would encourage you to really think about what transforms your shop front from something that's perhaps a little bit generic, a little bit tired, into something that's unique for your business, because that's what's going to really help your business stand out to customers, the sense that there's actually a personality behind the business. You're not just another brand that's kind of a bit faceless. And particularly in our historic city centre that we're so lucky to have here in Colchester, that you're really part of that community as well, that you've responded to the environment that you find yourself in. So my first bit of advice is really to just look at the whole of the street that you're on, not just looking at your shop. Your shop is going to be one of a parade of shops, a whole streetscape, and just look at how that street works as a whole. So you can see on the slide here, two really, really different streets. One's, if you like, maybe a bit more traditional. It's a terraced street with shops on the ground floor. And the other one is a wider street, a bit more of a kind of busy, bustling street. They've managed to take a picture without the buses in it, but that's only because they managed to get up early in the morning to do that. It's a really, really busy street. And you can see the bus stops and the traffic lights and how that would be a really busy environment, a little bit less maybe of a sort of heritage environment than the first one. But in both of those streets, you can see how the shop fronts are really getting some basic things right. The colours are coordinated with each other, so they do look really attractive as a whole. Each shop has its own distinctive colour, so you can pick it out from its neighbours. You know that they're all different businesses, but they're not clashing. They're not trying to kind of compete too hard with each other. Sometimes there's a temptation to use loads of different colours on your shop front. But what you've got to remember is your shop sits next to lots of other shops. Each of them is going to be a different colour too. So actually just choose one main colour for your shop. Yeah, you could have a few other little bits of colour, just a splash of detail, but choosing one colour for your shop front makes it really obvious to the customer. That's the shop, that's how big it is, that's how many units it might occupy as a whole, rather than being confusing. Definitely coordinate with your neighbour. The next thing I'm going to talk about is awnings. Now, I think awnings are a really under-celebrated part of our streetscape. They are a fantastic addition to your shopfront, particularly if there's not loads you can do with the shopfront itself, if you are just part of a parade of shops. There's loads of reasons why awnings are a really great idea. You can be really imaginative about the design of them, the colour and the material and the graphics. Obviously, they project out over the street, so if you're coming down the street, they help you be that bit more visible. They provide shelter, not just when it's raining, but actually in hot summers. And this is something that we need to be really conscious about going forward. Our summers are getting really hot nowadays, particularly if you've got a south-facing shopfront. Those awnings can make a really big difference to lowering your air conditioning costs and keeping your space cool. They also shade the glazing, so if you've got loads of glare coming from the sun onto your shopfront, actually makes it much easier to see the merchandise in the window, see through that shopfront into the interior, rather than being sort of dazzled by lots and lots of bouncy reflections. So awnings I really strongly encourage you to think about. They can be traditional, they can be a bit more jazzy, but have a think about how they can help you with your branding. The next bit I'm going to talk about are window graphics. Now, sometimes window graphics get a bad name because, you know, people say, oh, they can look a bit tacky or they can look a bit sort of boring. But these are a couple of examples of how these shops have really thought imaginatively about what a window graphic can do for their brand. They've taken a look at both colour, the graphic design, how it works with the overall shape of the shop front, how it works with their merchandising display as well. I love the way that the kind of guitars are hanging in that window there, and then you've got the little kind of stream of sort of almost like musical notes at the bottom. Or on the other side, you've got this really kind of bold graphic idea, which is almost creating these little shelves within the shop window graphically. So you're not actually having to build anything. It's quite a cheap and easy way to make something look really good. But again, it's really eye-catching. It's really different. So really think about how your graphics can be used to tell your brand story, but don't stop people being able to see into your shop. Customers love to be able to see into a shop. It helps them know what sort of environment they're going into. Sometimes it's also about feeling safe. I know you might not always think about it, but actually some customers just want to know if there are other people in that shop, whether they're going to feel okay and welcome in there, whether they're going to see someone they didn't necessarily want to bump into in there, or whether they can see a nice friendly shopkeeper smiling out at them. So don't block off the view, but you can think really creatively about how those window graphics, and we've got wonderful graphic designers here in Colchester in our creative sector, so I'd really encourage you to get a great graphic designer and encourage them to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more bold about what that might be. My next piece of advice is just to think about your whole building, not just the bit at the ground floor that's your shop front. So here's a kind of before and after of a shop front renovation, and you can see that yes, they've overhauled the shop front itself, which is really lovely. They've introduced much nicer colours and so forth, but they've also looked at the facade of the building above, because that can really bring down the overall effect of your building. If you've got a lovely, lovely shop front, but actually the building above it's looking really tatty and tired and kind of cracks, the grey render, it does just not help the whole street look its best. So think about how that could work. And you can see here, they've actually extended their brand up onto the freshly painted shop front, not in a really garish way. It's really light touch. It's really playful, but it is just really nice because actually you look over the street, if you are looking at the whole streetscape, you know, and it just gives it that little bit of a playful, again, a bit of a unique touch to the shop front. Just, you know, an encouragement that don't be afraid to be a little bit bold. That's my next bit of advice. You can actually be quite graphic about what your shopfront might do for you and how it tells your story. Here again, a before and after of a minicab company. And actually, you know, it's really bold to just put that piece of signage that says minicab, but you're literally telling people exactly what they can find. They don't have any questions about what your offer is. It's doing it for you, and it's really beautifully designed here in that lovely kind of boarded finish as well that looks really classy and really lovely. Again, here you can see that they've replaced the kind of net curtain approach with a much more open window. And I think particularly for a minicab company, that really works. Again, that's a late night business. People want to feel safe. They can tell it's open. They can tell what sort of people are inside. Really helps that feel a bit more welcoming. And lastly, you can see here that they've got a map on the window in that circle, map of the local area. Again, really nice touch, makes it special to that local area. Something a bit different from, you know, that map wouldn't be the same in Colchester as it would be in Chelmsford or somewhere else. Gives people a reason to stop and look at the window as well. Like if you were walking by, actually that could be even really quite handy. So think about how you can encourage people just to stop and linger outside your shop front for that little bit longer and give something back to the street. My next piece of advice is just looking carefully at some of the detail of your building features. Here you can see again another before and after, and you can see in the before that these quite lovely ornamental pilasters, so those are the columns either side of the door, you couldn't really tell they were there. They were all painted in with the rest of the shop front. They wouldn't really give any definition. And in the after, they've chosen to pick them out in a contrasting colour. You can really pick out suddenly where the door is there, the nice kind of column detail comes to life a bit. And actually, it also makes shopfront feel a little bit taller, because that's a bit of a sort of visual trick. By emphasising those verticals, you can make your shopfront feel a bit taller. They've helped themselves here, interestingly, as well, by changing the way they've treated the sort of fascia panel. So there's the yellow fascia at the very top, but then you can see in the before they've had a purple sort of burgundy fascia underneath. And you can see in the after that they've just painted that out. They've blacked it out actually on the inside, and it really merges in with the rest of the glazing. So again, that makes that shop front look much taller, much more generous than having it painted out in that contrasting colour as they had before. So last but not least, I've talked about just looking at the street. Do just look at your neighbour. When you're going to do your shopfront improvement, have a word with your neighbour just in case they're thinking of doing something as well, and coordinate. I love the way these two shops here, you can see the kind of pink and the blue. Yeah, it's, you know, it's a simple trip, but it's actually really nice. They look lovely together as a pair and just makes it feel that bit more special. So do just have a word with your neighbour and be imaginative about how you might work together to make sure that, you know, your little parade, your little piece of the streetscape just has a really lovely, lovely feel. So that's all from me, but just if you're going to take one thing from this, I would just say, remember that your shop is unique. So you really should make your shop front as unique as possible as well. You know, it's tempting to sometimes go for something that you've seen somewhere else before, that someone else has done. And that's great. Get some inspiration from that. But don't feel you just have to copy it. Get someone involved to have a quick look at it, see what you can tweak about it, make it that bit different, because that's what's going to make customers remember you. If you've got a shop front just like everybody else, they're not really going to remember you. But if you've got something unique that they can tell their friends about, that they can say, well, actually, oh yeah, it's on that street, but it's the one with the spotted awning, or it's the one with the really beautiful blue signage, or whatever it might be. It helps you be memorable and helps you build a brand. Thanks, Sam.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hannah. That was really, really great. Absolutely love the ideas there and looking at other places. And I think sometimes in Colchester, we are slightly conscious that we perhaps don't look at other places, you know, as we are quite inward looking, and especially our own premises. So that was fantastic and some really great ideas. Hannah, thank you so much. And for those watching the webinar, as I mentioned earlier on, don't forget that we are, the bid is funding consultations with Hannah and the Hat Projects team on some shopfront guidance at the moment, so please find out more on that on the Our Colchester website. Simon Cairns is Development Manager at Colchester City Council, and has been a huge support mechanism through the Shopfront Design grant scheme to support businesses in maximising their opportunities, especially with Colchester City Centre being a conservation area, and to abide by really important documents such as the Shopfront Design Guidance. So I'll hand over to Simon, and thanks again, Simon, for joining us today.
Thanks again, Sam. That was really helpful. So I'm Simon Cairns. I'm the Development Manager for Planning. I do have a background in heritage and design, and hopefully, you know, you can call on our services to support you in getting the most out of any renovations you carry out on your commercial property in the city centre. So as Hannah's just described to you very eloquently, why do shopfronts matter? Well, they're your window on the world. They help you to project your brand, they help you to pull in your customers, and they help you to make Colchester a success economically for all of us. So shopfronts are absolutely essential as they really do form your doorstep for customers. So moving on, we at the City Council have developed some design guidance for shopfronts, and that's available on our website. I've provided you with a link here. And the principles in this document, although it's now a little old, do remain true, and we're currently developing new guidance, which should be out later this year. But you can rely on the existing guidance, so please do take a look at it. It contains some really key and very basic messages and principles, which you can apply to really help get it right. But also we're here to help you and support you in your journey to gaining success, and also securing the right permissions so that you don't come a cropper along your journey. So moving on, yeah, Colchester is a very, very historic town. Britain in general has some unique commercial premises, and here's an example drawn from all over the UK. And what they all show is a really high quality and attractive street level series of shop fronts. These shop fronts fundamentally responded to the architecture of the buildings they're found in. So they're as unique as each building which hosts them, and also the towns in which they're found. But more importantly, they also relate the function of the commercial premises to which they relate. So we've got some retail premises, we've got some food and beverage premises there, and some other sort of commercial uses. So it's really important that it's clear from your shopfront what your business is, and it's clear that the corporate values that form part of your business are projected through the design and detailing of your shopfront. And I think the word I would want to emphasize is all about quality of design and quality of materials. So if we can move on. So yeah, we're not saying everything has to be very dull. It doesn't, but there are certain key rules we'd like you to look at. So on the left, you've got a very traditional, very simple shop front. I mean, these are found all over the place, these very simple Victorian shop fronts. And they can be jazzed up through the use of paint, the use of really high quality merchandising and displays, but also they form a basic, simple canvas for you to project your business identity through appropriate signage. Or alternatively, if we look at the shop front on the right hand side, I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying you know, there are examples of people who've actually gone wild. This is a mosaic, three-dimensional shop front, drawing on some of the Art Nouveau traditions of Europe. But as you can see, it's a real eye catcher and certainly not one to be missed. But I think somewhere in between, there are all sorts of very simple lessons that we can learn to how to deliver a successful shop front. So moving on. So yeah, I mean, here we've got a really simple, but very successful, very calm, very considered shop front. And this obviously projects a very sophisticated image for the business, but it does show how you can be incredibly simple and yet very effective. You know, this isn't got huge amounts of detailing about it. It's very, very simple. And sometimes simple can be incredibly successful. Some of you may have seen the recent jewelers for a very well-known high-end watch brand in the high street in Colchester. That draws upon a very, very simple design aesthetic using very high quality materials. So this is one very simple approach, which effectively almost looks like a Greek temple in some ways. You can see you've got the columns, you've got the fascia there, which is a bit like what's known as the entablature, and then a cornice above. But the signage is very discreet, very quiet, and this particular building forms part of a series of very sophisticated retail units. So if we move on. So yeah, design can be incredibly bespoke. This is a unit which was recreated from fragments of an early 20th century Art Nouveau shopfront, using some beautiful metal detailing. And clearly the retailer took a huge amount of effort in this. It's got a beautiful stall riser, that's the bit at the bottom of the shop front, in polished stone, and then the rest of it is in mahogany and copper. And as you can see, the shop front signage tilts forward, so it presents itself easily to view for those in the street outside the shop premises, and it's just all in all, it's a thing of beauty. But that's a period shop front. But if we move on, Hana mentioned it's about considering shop fronts as part of a wider street scene composition. Now, this is incredibly formal composition in the street, but as you can see, the individual units are all read as a whole. None of them seek to compete with one another. If anything, they seem to reinforce the sense of consistency and projecting a very calm, very considered, high quality environment using quality but simple materials and very simple detailing in many ways to create a very successful retail frontage. Now, you can personalize that obviously with your signage. As you can see here, there's no illumination at all. And that's a point I think I'd like to get over. We do not support internal illumination of shop signage. So we'll be looking at either unilluminated signage, halo backlit, or spotlights or troughs. So that's something to take away. It's really important that your signage forms part of the design of the overall shop front. And shop fronts are, at the end of the day, a piece of architecture. So it's really important that you seek appropriate architectural advice. And there are a lot of architectural firms out there. And I think, as Sam's described, The bid is providing financial support for referrals to give you advice on detailed design matters, which we really welcome. But we at the council are also here to give you support. And as soon as you are thinking about doing works to your shopfront, please contact us and we can spend 10 minutes, half an hour with you, and that can really set you on the right path to delivering something which will easily gain consent. So moving on. So I want to have a look at this particular image because I think it tells a really positive story about a local business who were looking to improve their retail premises. And at first glance, this looks like an absolute car crash, the shopfront. As you can see, you would just walk past it and think, well, it's not great, is it? It sends out a really confused message. There is no real visibility into the shop unit because it's so covered in film and adverts. But more to the point, you can't actually see, but in there is a very good quality early 20th century shopfront. And the developer initially wanted just to look at a replacement shopfront. But when we actually looked together at the shopfront, it was apparent that there were the bones of something really beautiful in there. And instead, he went on to repair the shopfront and to extend it round the corner to provide additional retail frontage. But this is a really good news story because in many ways, we saved something that mattered, both to the retailer and to the city centre. It was a piece of heritage, beautifully carved details to the shopfront, all of which had been saved, saving the developer and the shop operator a lot of money, but also retaining something of great quality that projected a unique image to the customer. So I think the matters I'd like you to consider is, first of all, look at your shop premises and does anything survive that's worth repairing? The answer may be no, but the answer may be actually, on reflection, we could repair this and reinstate it to something which could be quite beautiful. Secondly, I want you to consider what image are you trying to project for your business? I think it's really important that your shopfront reflects the branding of your business, but using high quality materials and well-designed graphics and signage, which I think is another point that Hana drew out in her presentation. So draw inspiration from the parent building. Does it have a particular style or architectural form that you could reinforce, or indeed actually provide a distinct contrast to? But it's important that you consider the context of your shopfront, both in terms of that premises and neighbouring premises. So respond to the architecture of the upper floor positively. So try and get the main architectural elements of your shopfront to align with the structural elements of the building above. So it clearly anchors the building and doesn't look like somebody has literally cut the legs off the building at ground floor level. And try to use materials that are sympathetic to the period of the building. What we won't support are plastic shopfronts, but the use of timber, either naked or painted, and also the use of metal shopfronts. I mean, bronze shopfronts can be incredibly beautiful, but costly. So I think it's about looking at your budget and trying to get the best bang for your buck. But look at the style of the building and try and be sympathetic to it, but work with your neighbours and try and achieve something which, as a whole, as a street scene, is appealing to customers and helps promote footfall. That way we can ensure that your business is as successful as possible. So moving on. So you're probably wondering what permissions you're likely to need. So the first easy test, I think, is your building listed? You should be able to search online, either using our website, Planning on the Map, which is a great place to start. And if you look at the constraints on there, it should show you whether your premises are listed, or look at the Historic England website. When you go into the statutory list, it should explain to you. If you have a query, though, do contact us at Planning Services at Colchester. So, second question, are you proposing to repair or replace your shopfront? Certainly replacement needs planning permission, but repair may well not unless the premises is listed. So, next step, signage. Try and incorporate your signage as part of the overall design concept of your shopfront. So are you proposing any illuminated signage, in which case advertisement consent will be required, but do seek advice because we can help you with regard to whether you will or won't need consent for that. If you're simply decorating a shopfront, generally you won't require any permission from us, but we would suggest that you think very carefully and you try and integrate your colour scheme both corporately within your branding, but also within the wider palette of colours used in the street. Trying to make your shop look like it belongs in that setting and reinforces local character. In terms of building regulation approval, if you're carrying out structural works, you may well need building regulation approval. So please seek advice from our building control colleagues. They'll be pleased to help you. If in doubt, always ask. I think that's the key question. We're here to help you and support you. We're on your side. We want Colchester to succeed. And as part of that, we want your business to be successful and for you to succeed and stay as a viable business in our city centre as long as possible. So moving on. So if you take away nothing else, if you're in doubt, always ask Colchester City Council first. Call up our inquiry number and ask to speak to the duty planner. There's always somebody there to help you. Ask to speak to building control. And if before you're about to embark on your shopfront enhancement project, seek some pre-app advice from us. We'll always be pleased to help. We will give you a little bit of time at no charge, and hopefully that'll set you along the right path to a very successful scheme. So thanks again, and best of luck with your project. Thank you.
Simon, that was absolutely fantastic. And I think you've reiterated a fantastic point there on multiple occasions. If in doubt, just ask. And this is very much the crux of this Shopfront Improvement grant is really trying to get this as a collective approach, both through support and with partnerships with yourself. So thank you so much for your time today. I personally found it very useful, and I know we've been working together for the last 5 years on this sort of thing, but I've even learned things today. So thank you so much, Simon. And that leads me on to our next section. So let's summarise. We've had Trish Willets from British Bids on the fantastic work that they had at Coventry Bid in the Heritage Action Zone. Some really, really great examples of how shop fronts were adapted, evolved, but also I think the key message from all partners today is around looking at neighbours and seeing how your shop front can complement others. We've had Hana Loftus looking at some more innovative ways of telling your story as a brand and using your shop front to do so. And finally, we've had Simon Cairns from a conservation area perspective and the Shopfront design guidance. So I hope this has been useful for you. As I said earlier on, we also have a selection of other mechanisms available to you and your business through this grant scheme. If you are still unsure after this of how to maximise your shopfront or how to adapt your shopfront, please get in touch. We have, as mentioned earlier on, we are funding free consultations for any of you to speak with HAT projects. The information is on our website under the Shopfront Improvement Grants if you want to find out more for that. We also are delivering a wide array of support mechanisms for those ineligible for these grant schemes. So that's general cleanliness and cleaning of the shop fronts, perhaps some gutter cleaning, bit of window cleaning, perhaps some paint. You just need to touch up a paint on your shop front as well. Please get in touch. We're here to help. We are the Business Improvement District for Colchester City Centre, and we're really hoping that there's some really great ideas that come up from this as well. If in doubt, please drop an email to our project lead on this, Sophia. It's project@ourcolchester.co.uk. Thank you very much.